In the future, the USA has been devastated by a harsh drought, and people are now ready to kill for water. Many of the people have departed, but the home family remains because the father Ernest believes plants will thrive again if they can receive some water. He recalls when the land was lush, but his son Jerome does not. One day, two robbers attempt to enter a small structure on Ernest's farm by setting the lock on fire. Ernest catches them in the act and starts shooting, prompting one of the thieves to attempt to fire back. He is quickly killed, and the second thief pleads for mercy, as he says someone informed him there was water there. He also says he needs to urinate and goes for his pants, but Ernest notices the gun and shoots him first. Jerome observes everything from a distance and asserts he could have assisted, but Ernest simply asks him to refer to him as Dad rather than by his first name. Then Ernest opens the small structure, showing a pump. Sadly, it doesn't provide them with any water, so they'll need to push their mule to continue without drinking. The pair continues on and encounters the watermen, a group of individuals who have exclusive rights to distribute water drawn from deep wells through a government agreement. Ernest provides them with supplies, and the men compensate him with water. He also advises Jerome not to provoke these individuals because they're risky. They should only conduct the trading and swiftly. Ernest frequently attempts to persuade them to supply water for his farm, but the watermen demand too high a price. On their journey home, their mule stumbles and gets badly hurt. As the creature is in distress, Ernest shoots it to relieve its agony. Jerome weeps yet insists he could have accomplished it. When they finally get to the farm, Jerome's sister Mary offers them mares. Then she cleans the dishes with dirt, while Ernest tunes into the radio and Jerome draws animals, which are their sole pastimes. All of a sudden, Ernest hears a sound and hurries outside to find that Mary has slipped out the window to meet her hidden boyfriend. The following day, Jerome and Ernest visit Sam's auction house and place a bid on a robot called Simulant Shadow, or Sim to substitute for their mule. Sam's child, Flem, also places a bid and battles them until the very end, but Ernest triumphs in the auction and his debt worsens. Later, they head to the hospital to see the child's mother, Catherine, who is unable to walk due to an accident. The hospital has a unique device that links her to a wire to assist her in walking, and the only way for the family to bring Catherine home would be purchasing that costly device. After a nice afternoon with Catherine, the pair heads home. On the path, they spot Robbie and Susie with their little one. Ernest refers to them as vultures for exploiting their child as a sympathy tactic to receive assistance, and then leaves to disregard them. They arrive at the gas station, and after filling the tank, Ernest has a little drink to complete the cost. Then he brings some water back to Robbie and his family. The pair has been considering selling the baby since they can't manage to raise him, but Ernest counsels them not to and vows to assist them with the water. Later at the farm, Flem arrives, revealing himself to be Mary's hidden boyfriend. He requests to borrow Sim and assures that he will pay a rental fee, but Ernest declines unless Sam signs a guarantee. Flem becomes upset and informs Ernest that he will never water this land before departing. The next time Jerome and Ernest encounter the watermen, they progress swiftly. Thanks to Sim, Ernest begins persuading the guys to think about an offer for installing a water line on his farm. Later, Ernest begins to unearth his old pump so that the watermen can examine what they possess. While working, he tells Jerome he should go out and meet a girl, or at least make some friends. But Jerome prefers to look after his family. On their journey home, they notice Flem's zoom past at high speed. At the farm, Mary cleans the clothes by adding a detergent to the vacuum cleaner. Ernest shows up and prohibits her from going out again, leading Mary to explode and declare that she's mature enough to do as she pleases. As Ernest insists he only wants to keep her safe, Mary claims he despises her father and adores Flem. Then she attempts to escape. She runs into Jerome and requests money, allowing Ernest to catch up to her and halt her. Mary weeps as she says Ernest let their family down. Then he confines her and secures her window with nails. After a while, Ernest and Jerome wake up to find that Sim has been taken. Ernest thinks it was Flem and heads to his house, but he finds out from Sam that Flem departed on a truck that morning for the mountains. It's disclosed that Ernest's farm previously belonged to Sam, and Flem is fixated on what his family has lost, even though Sam believes that land is barren and water won't assist. Later, Ernest heads to the mountains to explore, and he's unexpectedly knocked out. In the evening, Ernest awakens at the waterman's camp, where he's blamed for having taken their supplies with Sim. Ernest claims that he didn't do it, but the leader Caleb assaults him. A brawl breaks out, and after much effort, Ernest succeeds in taking Caleb's knife and a rifle, which he fires into the air to keep everyone away. He flees as Caleb keeps shouting threats at him. On his journey home, Ernest discovers Flem resting by the fire and Sim close by. He took the machine and the materials to make Ernest appear unfavorable. Ernest holds off until morning to rouse him with a gun pointed at his face. Then he fastens Flem to Sim, who is holding the supplies. As they stroll beneath the blazing sun to locate the waterman, Flem continues to tease Ernest by mentioning Mary, prompting Ernest to tug the rope to cause him to tumble as retribution. Eventually, they're both too parched to last for long, and Flem persuades Ernest to pause for a drink. The supplies contain alcohol, not water, and soon Ernest is becoming intoxicated due to his addiction. Flem merely acts like he is drinking, while he asserts that Caleb desires his life, so he only took the machine to stay alive. He even proposes Ernest money, but he declines it because the tale is questionable. Then Ernest attempts to stand, but the alcohol makes him lightheaded and he can hardly move. This was Flem's strategy from the beginning, and he takes the opportunity to strike Ernest with a rock, making him hit his head on the cliff. As he bleeds and loses consciousness, Ernest recalls Catherine's car crash, which had been triggered by his drinking behavior. Later, when Ernest awakens, he's bound to Sim, and Flem begins pouring more alcohol into his mouth, yelling like a madman. Later, Flem heads to the farm and Mary hops on his bike so they can flee together. Feeling concerned about Ernest, Jerome chooses to search for him. When night arrives, he discovers Sim at the waterman's camp, where the men inform him that his father passed away due to an accident with the machine. When it's time for the service, Mary returns and the siblings weep together. They also need to see their mom to share the bad news. Flem collects them in his truck and drives them home. At the farm, an angry Jerome begins striking Sim with a hammer, prompting Flem to intervene. He states that grief is tough, but he can't allow it to destroy a source of income, and proposes to take on the role of the new head of the family so he can assist the siblings. He also surprises Jerome by revealing Mary is expecting. Flem has grand ideas for the farm, and Jerome consents to let him give it a shot. In the afternoon, Flem brings supplies to the waterman and requests Caleb to install a water pipe on the farm. Initially, Caleb declines, but then Flem accuses him of Ernest's death since Caleb's rifle and knife were discovered with the body. Fearing the potential outcomes, Caleb consents to redirect water to the siblings' property. A couple of days later, the new farm pump is officially set up, and Flem works really hard all day to plant and cultivate weed, which is irrigated by sprinklers. The family can now also enjoy real showers. A few weeks later, Jerome is amazed to find a small leaf on the ground, and soon the area is filled with beautiful plants. To commemorate, Flem and Mary tie the knot and ink each other's initials on their hands. At the party, Flem drinks and continues to reflect on Ernest's passing. A few days go by and Sam arrives at the farm with two guys from the bank. It appears Ernest's debt is large and they want Flem to cover it. Flem frightens the horses with his bike just to appear tough, and Sam reprimands him, clarifying that no one ever wanted to purchase the land, and Ernest had it because he just never left. Due to the water in the crops, the bank can sell it, so Flem has to pay if he wants to keep it that night. Flem places Sim in his truck and collects Robbie with his baby. He acts like they'll be inquiring about some costs just to give sense, only for Flem to sell the baby against Robbie's wishes. Panicking, Robbie demands his baby back, and the buyers start shooting, resulting in Robbie's death. They attempt to shoot at Flem as well, who returns fire while fleeing, abandoning the machine. Sim is trapped in the exchange, and the harm causes it to trigger a mode that directs it back to the original factory. The following day, Flem settles the bank with the baby cash, but he informs the siblings that he sold Sim to Robbie. At the same time, Sim arrives in the city and is discovered by its creator Calvin, who locates the owner's details and contacts the farm. Jerome answers the call and begins to feel uneasy, so he rushes to the nearby market. He finds Flem chatting with Susie, who is holding a doll in her arms, pretending it's her child. Seeing this, Jerome attempts to speak with him, but Flem swiftly pulls Susie away. Later at the farm, Jerome inquires about Robbie, but Flem replies that Robbie took Sim and left his family behind. Resolved to uncover the truth, Jerome declares he'll see his mother, but he really boards a bus to the border. However, the guards won't allow him to go through because he's a minor without an adult. At that time, Anna comes up to him and suggests that she will help him cross if he pays. Jerome consents and Anna places him in a truck loaded with chickens. In only a few hours, the truck arrives in the city and Jerome sees it for the first time. He meets up with Anna and she brings him to the factory, but she only accepts half the cash as payment. She clarifies that the round trip is a trick. He doesn't require a guide to return because no one will prevent him from departing. Before she departs, Jerome inquires if she has ever encountered a guy named Ernest, but Anna doesn't recall the name. Later, Jerome meets with Calvin, who demonstrates all the features of the machine. It appears that Sim's eyes are cameras designed to capture the incline for reforestation and have documented everything Sim has witnessed. Calvin shows Jerome how to use it and provides him with some space. Jerome feels overwhelmed when he sees his dad again, but this turns into terror when he discovers that Flem murdered Ernest. It appears Flem secured Ernest to the device and directed it toward the waterman's camp, creating the impression that Sim had lost control and unintentionally pulled Ernest to his demise. Jerome experiences a meltdown in the center of the office. In the evening, it begins to rain on the farm for the first time in more than 10 years. Jerome quickly comes back and stays relaxed, inquiring Flem about how he retrieved Sim. Flem is puzzled and looks in the barn, surprised to find Sim there without any harm. He claims Robbie must have returned it out of remorse. A couple of days later, Jerome goes to see Catherine in person and vows to look after her just like Ernest did. One afternoon, Flem and Jerome are searching for animals to keep them away from the fields. Flem misses all his shots and hands the rifle to Jerome, attributing his failure to the weapon. Jerome is quite tempted to shoot Flem, but instead he takes down a deer, showing that the issue is Flem's aim. When they return home, Jerome conceals the rifle in his room. At lunch, Jerome mentions he received a call from Robbie, who was searching for Flem. This irritates Flem and he reacts, claiming Jerome is not telling the truth. Mary reprimands him for his behavior and Jerome maintains he's the reality. So Flem rushes out of the room. The following day, Flem receives a letter composed by Jerome acting as Robbie. The note requests Flem to join Robbie at the cliff since he's in trouble. Before departing, Flem searches for the rifle and Jerome mentions he took it to the shop for repair since Flem indicated it wasn't functioning properly. Flem must go along to avoid being discovered and expresses regret for his outburst at the table. After taking a knife, Flem heads to the cliffs with Sim and shouts for Robbie. All of a sudden, he tumbles into a concealed pit and fractures his legs. Flem cries out in agony and pleads with Sim for assistance, but the machine fails to comprehend. At that moment, Jerome appears and simply gazes at Flem with a stone in his hand, causing Flem to understand that the boy is aware of the truth. A hopeless Flem pleads for compassion, but Jerome overlooks him and keeps gazing, allowing him to endure the scorching sun. Eventually, Flem begins shouting for help once more and pleads with Jerome to consider his sister and the baby. He delivers a lengthy talk about mishaps and remorse, causing Jerome to become so furious that he ultimately shoots Flem, ending his life. When Jerome gets back home, he allows Mary to believe that Flem deserted her and doesn't reveal to her how Ernest truly passed away. Thanks to the funds from the harvest, they can now afford proper food, and the siblings agree they can finally purchase the machine so Catherine can move in with them. Jerome deletes all the recordings from Sim, prepared to begin anew.